Let me ask you something. Imagine we're just sitting next to each other having a real conversation for a minute. No filters, no pretending. Think about the last time you saw a man give everything to a relationship: his time, his money, his attention, his energy. Maybe he planned every date, solved every problem, tried to be the perfect guy. And yet, somehow the relationship still fell apart. Now, here's the uncomfortable question a lot of men quietly ask themselves afterward. If I did so much, why didn't it work? Most guys grow up believing a simple formula about relationships: do more for her, and she'll appreciate you more. Buy the gifts, send the long messages, always be available, fix every problem, sacrifice your own plans, and loyalty will naturally follow. It sounds logical, it even sounds noble, but real human psychology, especially in relationships, doesn't always follow that script. This is where things get interesting and sometimes controversial, because when you look closely at relationship behavior, you start to notice something. People aren't loyal simply because someone does things for them. Loyalty usually forms around how someone makes us feel, how we see them, and the emotional connection we build with them over time. Many men misunderstand this and accidentally turn relationships into a kind of transaction. If I give enough, she'll stay. But attraction and loyalty rarely work like a reward system. They are influenced by emotional dynamics, respect, personal boundaries, confidence, and shared values, not just effort alone. And here's another truth that can be hard to hear. When a man focuses only on pleasing someone else, he sometimes stops showing the qualities that made him attractive in the first place: his independence, his purpose, his sense of direction. Over time, the relationship can begin to feel unbalanced. This doesn't mean women don't appreciate effort, kindness, or generosity. Of course they do. But appreciation and long-term loyalty are not created by what you do alone. They're shaped by a deeper mix of emotional connection, respect, attraction, and mutual investment from both people. So in this discussion, we're going to break down some key ideas about relationship psychology, especially the mistakes many men make when they believe effort alone should guarantee loyalty. The goal isn't to blame anyone. Instead, it's to understand the dynamics more clearly so men can approach relationships with better awareness, stronger boundaries, and a healthier mindset. 1. Loyalty is built on emotion, not effort. Let's talk about something that many men learn the hard way. Picture a guy who does everything right, or at least everything he thinks is right. He's always available. He pays for the dinners, he solves problems, he listens to every complaint. He sacrifices his time, his energy, sometimes even his own goals, just to make sure the woman he's with is comfortable and happy. And yet, one day the relationship ends, and he's left sitting there wondering, how did this happen? I did everything for her. If you've ever heard a story like that, or maybe lived it yourself, you already know how confusing it can feel. Because most men grow up believing a simple rule: the more effort you put in, the more loyal someone will be to you. But relationships don't actually work like a scoreboard. Loyalty isn't built the same way you build a work project or complete a checklist. You can't just stack up actions and expect a guaranteed result. Human emotions are far more complicated than that. In many cases, loyalty grows out of something much deeper: how someone feels around you. Think about it for a moment. When people describe the relationships they stay loyal to, they rarely say, "I stayed because they bought me things," or "I stayed because they solved all my problems." Instead, they usually say things like, "I felt understood," "I respected them," "I admired who they were," "I felt a strong connection." Those feelings are powerful, and they often matter more than effort alone. Now here's where many men accidentally make a mistake. When a man believes effort is the main key to loyalty, he can start focusing entirely on doing things for the other person instead of maintaining the qualities that created attraction in the first place. For example, he might stop focusing on his own goals because he's constantly trying to be available. He might stop setting boundaries because he doesn't want to disappoint her. He might even ignore his own needs just to keep the peace. At first, this can look like kindness, but over time, it can slowly change the dynamic of the relationship. Why? Because attraction and respect often grow when someone sees that you have your own direction, confidence, and self-respect. When those qualities disappear, the emotional balance of the relationship can change. This doesn't mean effort doesn't matter. Effort is still important in any healthy relationship. Being supportive, thoughtful, and generous are all positive traits. But effort works best when it's combined with emotional connection and mutual respect, not when it replaces them. Another way to think about it is this: effort can support a relationship, but it rarely creates loyalty by itself. Loyalty tends to grow when both people feel something meaningful in the connection, when they respect each other, enjoy each other's presence, and feel emotionally invested. So if a man focuses only on giving more and more without paying attention to the emotional dynamics of the relationship, he might miss the bigger picture. The goal isn't to stop being kind or supportive. The goal is to understand that loyalty isn't something you can purchase with favors or earn through endless sacrifice. It's something that usually grows from mutual attraction, emotional connection, and balanced investment from both people. Once you understand that difference, you start approaching relationships in a much healthier and much more effective way. 2. Why doing everything for her can backfire. Let me paint a picture that might sound very familiar. A man meets a woman he really likes. From the very beginning, he decides he's going to be the best partner possible. He opens every door, pays for every date, responds to every message instantly, cancels plans with friends just to see her, and makes sure she never has to worry about anything. On the surface, that sounds like the perfect partner, right? But here's the strange part that many men eventually notice. Sometimes the more he tries to do everything, the less appreciated he begins to feel. At first, she might thank him. She might even say he's amazing. But slowly, something changes. The excitement starts fading. The energy feels different. And eventually, the relationship can begin to feel one-sided. So what's going on here? The issue isn't kindness. The issue isn't generosity. Those things are important in any relationship. The real problem is imbalance. When one person constantly gives, solves, fixes, and sacrifices while the other person mostly receives, the relationship can quietly shift into a dynamic where effort is no longer mutual. And when effort stops being mutual, appreciation often begins to fade. Think about it like this. Human beings naturally value things that require some level of investment from both sides. When both people are contributing emotionally, making time, and putting in effort, the relationship feels like a shared experience. But when one person carries almost the entire weight, the connection can start to feel less like a partnership and more like a service. This is why doing everything can sometimes work against you. Another reason this happens is because overgiving can unintentionally remove an important part of attraction: mystery and independence. If a man is always available, always agreeing, always prioritizing the other person above everything else in his life, it can signal that he has nothing else going on. His world starts to revolve entirely around the relationship. And ironically, that can reduce the sense of excitement that often keeps attraction alive. People are often drawn to individuals who have their own direction, people who have goals, passions, friendships, and a life that exists outside the relationship. When someone gives up all of that just to constantly please their partner, they may slowly lose the very qualities that made them interesting in the first place. There's another important point here that many men overlook. When someone is used to receiving constant effort without needing to give much back, it can unintentionally train the relationship into an unhealthy pattern. Over time, it can become the new normal. Suddenly, the effort is expected rather than appreciated. That's why healthy relationships usually involve balance. Both people invest time. Both people make sacrifices. Both people show care and effort. It's not about keeping score. It's about creating a dynamic where both partners feel valued and involved. So the lesson here isn't to stop being generous or thoughtful. Those qualities are still valuable. The real lesson is to avoid losing yourself in the process. Kindness works best when it comes from someone who still maintains their confidence, their boundaries, and their own life. When effort is shared instead of one sided, appreciation tends to grow naturally. And when appreciation grows, the relationship becomes stronger for both people. 3. Respect versus pleasing, the hidden difference. Let's talk about something many men don't realize until much later in their dating lives. There's a huge difference between being a good partner and trying too hard to please. At first, those two things can look almost identical. Being thoughtful, supportive, and considerate are all important parts of a healthy relationship. Most men genuinely want to make the person they're with feel happy and cared for. That instinct is completely natural, but sometimes, without noticing it, that desire to be supportive slowly turns into something else. The constant need to keep the other person happy at all times. And that's where the problem begins. When a man feels like he must always agree, always accommodate, and always avoid any form of disagreement just to maintain peace, he may slowly stop expressing his real opinions, preferences, and boundaries. Instead of showing who he truly is, he starts shaping his behavior around what he believes the other person wants. Over time, that can create a subtle shift in the relationship dynamic. When someone consistently puts aside their own voice just to please another person, it can unintentionally signal a lack of self-respect, not because the person is weak, but because they've stopped standing firmly in their own identity. Respect in relationships often grows when both people feel that the other person has a clear sense of self. That means having opinions, values, priorities, and limits. It means being able to say no when something doesn't feel right, and being comfortable expressing honest thoughts without fear of losing the relationship. When those things disappear, the relationship can start to feel unbalanced. Many men have experienced that quiet feeling where they realize they've been adjusting themselves more and more just to avoid conflict. They may begin to feel like they're walking on eggshells, constantly trying to keep everything smooth. The strange part is that this approach is often taken with good intentions. The goal is usually to create harmony and avoid unnecessary tension. But real respect rarely grows in an environment where one person feels like they must constantly manage the other person's emotions. Healthy relationships allow space for both people to be individuals. That means both partners can express themselves honestly, disagree respectfully, and still maintain connection. Respect is built when someone knows that the person beside them is authentic and grounded in who they are. Trying to please someone all the time may feel like the safer option in the moment, but it can slowly weaken the foundation of the relationship if it replaces authenticity. A balanced relationship allows kindness and honesty to exist together. You can be caring without losing your boundaries. You can be supportive without abandoning your own voice. And you can value the relationship while still valuing yourself. Understanding that difference changes the way many men approach relationships. Instead of focusing only on avoiding conflict or constantly trying to satisfy the other person, they begin to focus on building something stronger: mutual respect, clear communication, and a connection where both people can show up as their true selves. 4. Attraction often comes from independence. Let's slow down for a moment and talk honestly. One of the biggest mistakes many men make in relationships is something they rarely notice while it's happening. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens gradually. A man meets someone he really likes, and little by little, his entire focus begins to shift toward that relationship. His schedule starts revolving around her. His priorities begin adjusting around her life. His attention becomes almost completely centered on keeping the relationship going smoothly. At first, it might even feel like the right thing to do, But here's the uncomfortable truth. When a man slowly abandons his own direction in life just to center everything around a relationship, he often loses one of the most important qualities that made him attractive in the first place: his independence. Attraction is not just about how someone treats you, it's also about how someone carries themselves in life. People are naturally drawn to individuals who have purpose, ambition, confidence, and a sense that their life is moving forward. When someone has goals they care about, passions they pursue, and a life that continues to grow, that energy becomes part of their presence. But when a relationship becomes the only focus, that energy can slowly disappear. And this is where some honest criticism for men needs to happen. Many men are never taught that maintaining their own life is actually a key part of building a strong relationship. Instead, they're taught that love means sacrificing everything, dropping their priorities, and constantly proving devotion through attention and availability. Over time, that approach can quietly weaken the dynamic. When a man stops focusing on his goals, stops investing in his personal growth, or stops maintaining the parts of his life that gave him purpose, he can begin to feel less confident and less grounded. Even if he doesn't realize it immediately, the shift is noticeable. The relationship slowly becomes his entire world. That's a heavy responsibility for any relationship to carry. Healthy attraction usually grows when two people come together as individuals who already have direction in their own lives. Each person brings their own energy, experiences, and ambitions into the relationship. That creates balance. So here's the wake-up call that many men eventually have to face. A relationship should be part of your life, not the replacement for it. Your goals still matter, your growth still matters, your purpose still matters. When you stay focused on building your own life, developing your skills, chasing your ambitions, maintaining friendships, and continuing to grow as a person, you naturally bring more confidence and stability into any relationship. And that confidence is often far more powerful than constant attention or approval. This doesn't mean neglecting your partner or ignoring the relationship. It simply means understanding that attraction and respect often grow stronger when both people maintain their own sense of direction. So instead of putting your entire identity into the relationship, focus on building a life that you're proud of. When you do that, the relationship becomes something that adds to your life, not something that replaces who you are. 5. Mutual investment is what actually builds loyalty. Let's bring everything together with one idea that many men overlook when trying to understand relationships. Real loyalty usually grows where both people are invested. Not one person carrying everything. Not one person doing all the emotional work. Not one person constantly proving themselves. Both people. A lot of men enter relationships believing that if they simply work harder than everyone else, if they give more time, more attention, more effort, then the relationship will naturally become stronger. But relationships are not something that one person can build alone. Connection grows through shared participation. That means both people showing care, both people making time, both people putting energy into the relationship. When that balance exists, the bond often becomes much stronger because each person feels involved in building it. When effort flows in both directions, appreciation tends to stay alive. But when only one person is constantly investing while the other person is mostly receiving, something subtle begins to happen. The relationship slowly loses its sense of partnership. Instead of feeling like two people growing something together, it starts to feel like one person maintaining everything. And over time, that dynamic can quietly create frustration, exhaustion, or emotional distance. Many men recognize this feeling after a while. They begin to notice that they are the one always initiating conversations, planning time together, solving problems, or trying to keep the connection alive. The relationship starts to feel like something they have to constantly manage. That's usually a signal that the balance of investment has shifted. Healthy relationships tend to feel lighter because both people naturally participate in maintaining the connection. There's shared effort in communication, shared effort in spending time together, and shared effort in supporting each other through challenges. It doesn't mean everything will always be perfectly equal. Life circumstances change, and sometimes one partner may temporarily need more support than the other. But over the long run, the healthiest connections tend to have a rhythm where both partners contribute emotionally and practically. This is where many men benefit from changing their mindset. Instead of asking, "What else can I do to prove my value?" a healthier question becomes, "Is this relationship growing through mutual effort?" That shift in perspective helps men step out of the mindset of constantly trying to earn loyalty and instead focus on building a balanced connection. Because loyalty is rarely the result of one person's constant effort. It usually develops when two people feel equally committed to protecting and growing the relationship they share. When both individuals feel responsible for maintaining the bond, something powerful happens. The relationship becomes a place of cooperation rather than pressure. That's where long-term stability often begins. So the goal is not to stop caring, giving, or investing in a relationship. Those things are still important. The real goal is to make sure that the investment is mutual. When both people are building the connection together, loyalty tends to grow naturally because neither person feels like they are carrying the relationship alone. Before we wrap this up, let me leave you with a statement that might sound controversial at first, but think about it carefully. No one stays loyal simply because you try the hardest. Not in relationships, not in friendships, not even in life. Loyalty isn't something you can force into existence through constant effort, endless giving, or by sacrificing everything about yourself. Real loyalty grows when two people genuinely respect each other, value each other, and choose to invest in the connection together. And this is something many men eventually realize after experience teaches them what no one explained earlier. Trying harder is not always the answer. Giving more is not always the solution. Sometimes the real shift happens when a man stops trying to prove his value and instead focuses on building a life that already has value, a life with purpose, direction, confidence, and clear boundaries. Because when someone respects themselves and maintains their own path, the dynamic of every relationship around them begins to change. Now, I'm curious about something. A lot of the ideas we talked about today come from patterns that many men notice over time. But everyone's experiences are different, and sometimes the most valuable insights come from honest conversations. So I want you to share something in the comments. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt like you were giving everything in a relationship, but still felt unappreciated? Or maybe you've learned lessons that completely changed how you approach relationships today. Drop your experience in the comments, and let's start a real discussion about it. I read through them and I genuinely like hearing the different perspectives people bring. Who knows, your story might be the one that helps someone else see things more clearly. At the end of the day, understanding relationships is a learning process for everyone. And the more we talk about these experiences openly, the easier it becomes for all of us to grow from them.